do you take it beyond the event? How do you transform these celebrations into something meaningful for those who identify in these communities and for allies?
My recommendation is that DE&I sit independent of HR because the DE&I strategy should be integrated throughout every step in the employee lifecycle. Every time I work with a company, I said from the time you write the job description until they either decide to leave or as they are promoted through your organization, how can you amplify the needs of this community? For example, if you have an interview team and they are still calling people he or she, then you have completely alienated your trans community. How is it that you can do small acts by having interview training so that your interviewers know how to use certain language that is most inclusive? And then, how did you write your job description? Did you put in qualifications that are outdated and that have systemically excluded people because they didn't have access to education, but you have a ton of self taught engineers? So, how did you write your job description? So, even the pre steps before you go to sourcing is one way. So, when you're talking about women, how are you making sure there are more women in your pipeline? How are you making sure there are more people of color? Let's talk about how we are hiring and recruiting and preparing for them. Then once they arrive, what is it like when they get there? Your employee, your new hire orientation should have a DE&I section or an employee resource group section or culture section that really says this is what we stand for and everybody is welcome. That first introduction to a company really distinguishes the feeling of that employee when they come in, that they feel heard, that they feel represented, and it ushers them into a starting point at your company where that is their foundation, a sense of openness and belonging. Once they get through that new hire orientation, how are your managers trained to have emotional intelligence, creating psychological safety? And then lastly, with promotions and development, how are you going through your performance reviews? How do you extract the bias in the way that you assess talent? Men typically get credit for their aggression where women are penalized. And so, how do you make sure that these learnings are infused in every aspect of the life cycle? And of course, last but not least, what do your leadership teams look like? If you had an ERG for 10 years, but you haven't had any growth in that demographic, I think you've missed the point. The goal is we need more representation. So as you go through the employee life cycle, how is this cultural moment reflected at every stage of the experience of your employees? And that's how you make this integral to every aspect of your company. It will not happen overnight, but it is essential. And I estimate that it takes 3 to 5 years if you do it consistently and with the right information up front.
Yes, the employee life cycle is key. And that is, in my work as well, how I have really structured bringing diversity and inclusion best practices into every aspect of our business. So thank you so much for sharing that.